Back to East Ramapo now. You may remember that last week a bill passed by an 80-60 vote in the state assembly that would provide for a fiscal monitor with veto power in the district to ensure the school board was acting in a manner fair to all students. The debate in the assembly was notable for its stark divisions over racial and religious lines. The East Ramapo School District is comprised of mostly Black and Hispanic children. The school board is run by a majority of Hasidic and ultra-Orthodox Jews who primarily send their children to private religious schools. On Sunday, Senator David Carlucci introduced a separate bill, one advocates for stronger oversight do not support. On Tuesday, Carlucci tried again, making changes to the bill that, again, Assembly lawmakers did not back, saying they wanted an overseer to have veto power over the East Ramapo School Board. If the two sides don't make a compromise soon, the status quo will remain in the East Ramapo schools. Joining us to discuss the situation in this school district and what's next is Yossi Gestetner. He's the co-founder of the Orthodox Jewish Public Affairs Council, also known as OJPAC. Yossi, welcome to the Capitol Press Room.
Thank you, Susan, for having me.
So is the status quo acceptable in your opinion?
I think the status quo in East Ramapo is unacceptable. But the status quo includes misinformation that has been spread for too long. The status quo includes the state shortchanging the district to the tune of $30 million annually due to a faulty formula system. The status quo includes outsiders leading this push against the district with limited motive to find real solutions. The status quo includes lawmakers literally running away from Orthodox Jewish members when they visited Albany to voice their concerns. So, no, I don't think the status quo as it is now or as it has been in recent years is acceptable.
Do you feel that there has been a veneer of anti-Semitism that has enveloped some of this debate?
The East Ramapo debate, by and large, is a fair debate to have, and it's important to have these debates when school districts, whether East Ramapo or other districts, face challenges. However, a certain, percentage of the debate, a certain group of people have been involved in this debate whose motives are clearly not to help the students of the district, and you see that and you know that because certain voices somehow have always an opinion on issues where the Orthodox Jewish community is involved.
Can you be specific?
I wouldn't name names. I don't want to give publicity for people who don't deserve it.
You don't need to name names, but I would like you to cite some specific instances, if you don't mind.
Yes. There is someone who, anytime there's a conversation about the Jewish community, be it the Orthodox community, be it in Lakewood, New Jersey, be it in East Ramapo, which is in Rockland County, be it in Blumenberg, which is in Sullivan, be it in Kiryas Joel, which is in Orange, somehow this commentator, a very loud commentator, somehow always finds fault with the community. So when this, commentator speaks at school board meetings, commentator not even from the district, when this commentator has opinions on East Ramapo, then you have to wonder what are the motives behind this commentator. So this has been a
Can I ask you a question? If you put the shoe on the other foot, are there commentators who are always backing the ultra-Orthodox communities in Lakewood, in Kiryas Joel, in East Ramapo?
Okay, there is a nature for a person to be, when they are in a community or represent a community, they would see things perhaps with a bias towards that community. And therefore, it is important to have conversations with people who really care about these issues and then, come to an honest conclusion. So, for example, I don't begrudge someone who has a long record for advocating on behalf of public school education who wants to come in East Ramapo with an opinion or what they think would be a solution. But if this person has no or a thin record in advocating for public education, if this person goes out there publicly and uses nasty language against this community, if this person who purports to be an advocate for education refuses to meet with members of the Orthodox community, and the Orthodox are 75% students in this district, then you have to wonder, why are these people involved? Why is this person here?
Yossi, did you watch the debate in the assembly? I believe you did.
Yes, absolutely. I watched, I think, 90 minutes of it.
Can you tell us what you thought?
There were a couple of interesting notes that I had about the debate. First of all, it was really shocking to me that lawmakers who are involved in this process for so many months, didn't know how to answer simple questions when colleagues asked them. And that tells you that so much of this debate has been just about pushing down an agenda, shoving through something, the legislator, without knowing what's going on.
You're referring to one issue that Ellen Jaffe, I think that she stumbled a bit, but she certainly knew, I'm sure, that the school board votes once a year.
She could have known that. Those 60 seconds were very revealing. Jaffe was stumbling for answers when the school board votes. You don't know how often they vote. She was completely confused, and she was flat-footed on so many other parts during this debate, which tells you that this whole solution here isn't based on the reality on the ground.
Can you really extrapolate all of that from one bumbled answer?
Oh, it's not one bumbled answer. We actually have a 5-minute video summarizing how bad it was. So it's not one bumbled answer which stood out.
As a Jew, I was uncomfortable watching that debate. I thought there was a moment or two where I thought there was a bit of anti-Semitism sort of sneaking out. I also felt that opponents of the bill showed a remarkable lack of empathy toward the plight of the minority students in East Ramapo. Can you comment on that?
That is actually another part of the debate which stood out to me, that people who opposed the current bill kept on bringing up facts and statistics again and again and again, while those in support of this bill were either clueless or made wild accusations, just as take Charles Barron, Assemblyman Barron. And that probably is reflective of the different type of lobbying that went on in the past 6 months. Obviously, the people who went up to Albany in opposition of the bill kept on presenting facts, statistics, the full story. And therefore, you had so many lawmakers who were able to stand on the floor and be more knowledgeable about East Ramapo than even local lawmakers. But on the other hand, certain lawmakers who spoke up in support of the Jaffe bill actually were clueless, had no idea what they were talking about, so they needed to use, just crazy language or just talk.
Well, let's
probably, give me a second, because probably the lobbying to them by what I would call the other side was based on junk, not fact.
Well, let's talk about the actual issue. Yossi, do you believe the Black and Hispanic students in East Ramapo schools are receiving a sound basic education?
I think the students in the public schools get the best education that an underfunded school district can buy. Again, this district is down $30 million annually in state funding. And East Ramapo, according to independent data from the state, has no failing school in it.
Obviously, in terms of failing schools and money, I'm not sure how East Ramapo can cry poor when 98% of its GEA has been eliminated. And while East Ramapo is definitely owed foundation aid, 146 other school districts in New York are also owed foundation aid, and a lot more than East Ramapo. But these issues aren't facing them.
There are a couple of answers to that. First of all, there are 178 failing schools throughout New York State. This includes many districts who are underfunded from the state, but East Ramapo has no failing school in it. Secondly, in terms of the foundation aid, this problem is, I think, huge in East Ramapo and probably worse than most other districts, because the state in their determination how to help this district sees so much property value, but they see so few students in the public school system. And therefore the ratio seems to be as if this is a rich district. And therefore, East Ramapo gets per public school student much less than many other districts. For example, and I don't want to bore your listeners with statistics too much, but Haverstraw is a district close to East Ramapo. The poverty rate over there is almost half the size of East Ramapo. East Ramapo has a much higher poverty rate. But actual in foundation aid, Haverstraw gets about $1,000 more per student. East Ramapo has 8,500 students. Imagine if the district would have $1,000 more per student if they were just seen, according to the state, as if they were Haverstraw. And again, Haverstraw.
Are you saying then that it's only because of the underfunding, what you call the underfunding, that East Ramapo students may not be receiving a sound basic education? Because there are other analyses that are saying something else, including an analysis by the New York City Bar Association, an analysis by, the School Boards Association says they're looking for something. Rabbi Jonah Pessner of the Anti-Defamation League. All of these are saying that, Pessner said Judaism calls on us to cherish education and pursue justice, and both are at risk for the children attending public school in East Ramapo. How do you respond?
It's absolutely important that we seek justice for East Ramapo, and therefore it is very important for two things to take place. Number one, the district should be fully funded by the state. Secondly, when we pursue justice in East Ramapo, the solution is not to suspend civil liberties of a whole community by form of a monitor with veto power, or as some offered now, an impartial officer who technically has this veto power. So you don't bring justice by doing unjust stuff to other communities.
But I don't live in East Ramapo, Yossi, but there are so many groups that believe an independent monitor with veto power is the right idea, including Jewish groups like the Anti-Defamation League. And this is actually part of the problem, that so much of East Ramapo has been misinformation, or no information at all. I think one of the biggest mistakes the school board has done over the last 5-6 years has been not communicating their position, the realities with the public. I think that has not helped the debate, and I hope that going forward, the school boards would be more active in sticking to facts, explaining facts, and do you think going into executive session so frequently might have been a problem, might have been a mistake in its efforts to communicate with the public?
This executive session thing, as it was pointed out on the floor of the assembly, many school districts have larger percent of their conversations in executive session. But the executive session has been a result of so many school board meetings being disrupted by agitators, instigators, coming in there, yelling and screaming like crazy. I mean, you remember what happened a couple of years ago with the previous education commissioner? What was his name? Not Klein. The state education, King. John King decided to go on a state tour to meet with public school parents in 5 different public schools. He pulled out of this tour after the first one because so many people there were making noise, yelling and screaming, and this is essentially how so many East Ramapo school board meetings looked over the last couple of years. So the board, I believe, has 2 options. One option is to sit and not be able to do the public's business because people are yelling and screaming, shouting, and being disruptive, or actually take some time and sit in executive session and actually get things done.
What we're going to do, Yossi, is take a break. But we're going to come back in about 30 seconds and talk a little bit more. We're speaking with Yossi Gestetner, who is the co-founder of the Orthodox Jewish Public Affairs Council. We'll be right back. My guest today is Yossi Gestetner. He is the co-founder of the Orthodox Jewish Public Affairs Council, or OJPAC, and we're talking about East Ramapo. I would like to talk about what's next, Yossi, and I'd love to hear from you one thing that the school board could do differently than it has been doing in order to make things better for the whole community?
I think the most important part, what the school board should do, is have a better communication mechanism with journalists, lawmakers, students, activist groups. The misinformation has gone on for so long that the solution doesn't even fit the problem correctly. And as long as this is not going to change, as long as we won't have a debate based on facts.
What facts am I getting wrong?
I'll give you. I'm not saying you personally get something wrong, but I'll give you an example. I actually have a couple of examples. There's this claim that has been made on the assembly floor last week that spending has increased for the private schools while it has decreased for the public schools in recent years. But what misses from this fact is the private enrollment skyrocketed by, 12% in the last 5 years, and public school enrollment actually decreased. Also, the private spending is largely mandated by law. So that supersedes voluntary programs for public school when there's a lack of state funding. So lawmakers can stand on the assembly floor and yell about changing spending, but they didn't say a word about the change in enrollment. And here's a larger, even more important fact. The district spends on transportation per student much less than many other districts, okay? Yet the monitor, Hank Grimberg, said that this district actually spends in total on busing a larger percent of its budget than other school districts. So to me, what is the truth? Does the district spend less per student, or do they spend a larger percent of the budget on transportation?
The issue is that we have to look at the big picture here. What is it that we're going to do going forward?
As I said, going forward, we need to address the specific problems. We need to push aside and put aside voices who have no real interest in the success of the district. We need to call out the people who are draining the district funds with frivolous lawsuits, many of which have been thrown out of court. And we need to start looking at issues at hand. When we have a democratically elected board who has oversight from the AG's office, who has oversight from the education department, who has oversight from the controller, to then come in and push down a veto-powered monitor on this district is very concerning, especially that the funding in whichever bill we have now on the floor gets ignored. The funding doesn't really get addressed, and that's a big problem.
We've been speaking with Yossi Gestetner, who's the co-founder of the Orthodox Jewish Public Affairs Council, or OJPAC, in East Ramapo. Yossi, thank you.
Sure.